When Liana Vale accidentally witnesses a brutal execution in a moonlit garden, she knows she's seen something that should have killed her. The man who ordered it, Roman DeLuca, the most feared name in the city's underworld, lets her walk away with nothing but a warning. But mercy comes with a price. One stolen kiss at a wedding marks her as his, and now his enemies circle like wolves, scenting blood. Caught between terror and an attraction she can't explain, Liana's ordinary life shatters the moment Roman decides she's worth protecting. Like this video, comment what city you're watching from, and follow this story to the end to see how far love and danger can take two people who were never supposed to meet. The Ashford estate looked like something out of a fever dream. All white marble columns and sprawling gardens that probably cost more to maintain than Liana's annual salary. She stood near the champagne fountain, trying to blend into the wallpaper, while women in dresses that cost more than her car laughed at jokes she didn't understand. Her cousin Victoria's wedding. The cousin who'd made it, the one who'd married into actual wealth, not the kind you pretended to have on credit cards. Liana smoothed down her dress, a simple black number she'd bought on sale 3 months ago, and wished she'd stayed home. But family was family, even when family made you feel like you'd wandered onto the wrong movie set. "You look lost." She turned. A woman in her 60s, dripping in diamonds, smiled at her with the kind of warmth that didn't reach her eyes. "Just admiring the view," Liana said. Victoria's done well for herself. Though, between you and me, the Ashford money is old and tired. It's the new money you have to watch." The woman glided away before Liana could ask what that meant. She grabbed a glass of champagne from a passing waiter and headed toward the gardens. At least outside, she could breathe without feeling like everyone was calculating her net worth. The gardens were vast, dotted with sculptures that probably had names and histories. Fairy lights hung from ancient oak trees, and somewhere a string quartet played something classical and forgettable. Liana walked the stone path, her heels clicking softly, grateful for the momentary solitude. That's when she saw him. He stood near a fountain, surrounded by 4 men in dark suits. But it wasn't the suits that made her pause. It was him, tall, built like he knew exactly how much damage he could do with his hands. Dark hair swept back from a face that looked carved from stone, sharp jaw, straight nose, eyes that seemed to see through everything they landed on. He wasn't talking, just listening while one of the suited men spoke rapidly, gesturing with his hands. But the way the others positioned themselves, the way they kept glancing at him for approval, this was someone important, someone dangerous. Liana should have turned around, should have walked back to the reception and found a quiet corner to count down the minutes until she could leave. Instead, she stepped behind a hedge, watching. The man, the one in charge, raised one hand. The others went silent immediately. "Show me," he said. His voice carried across the garden, low and controlled. Not loud, but commanding in a way that made volume irrelevant. 2 of the suited men disappeared into the shadows. When they returned, they were dragging someone between them, a man in a rumpled shirt, his face already swollen and bloody. Liana's breath caught. "Please," the beaten man gasped. "Please, I didn't know it was yours. I swear I didn't—" "You knew." The dark-haired man didn't raise his voice, didn't have to. "You knew exactly what you were taking and who it belonged to." "Roman, please." The sound of bone breaking echoed across the garden. Liana flinched, her champagne glass slipping from her fingers. It hit the stone path and shattered. Every head turned toward her. For a moment, the world stopped. The man, Roman, stared at her across the garden, his expression unreadable. His eyes were dark, almost black in the fairy lights. They locked onto her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. She should have run. Every instinct screamed at her to turn and sprint back to the safety of the reception, to witnesses and cameras and people who would ask questions if she disappeared. But she couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't look away from those eyes. Roman said something low to the man beside him. Then he started walking toward her. Liana's paralysis broke. She turned and ran, or tried to. Her heel caught on the stone path and she stumbled, catching herself against a marble statue. By the time she'd righted herself, he was there. Up close, he was worse. Taller than she'd thought, broader. And those eyes, they weren't black, she realized. They were such a dark brown, they only looked black. And they were studying her like she was a problem he was deciding how to solve. "You should be more careful," he said quietly. These gardens can be dangerous at night. I didn't see anything. The words tumbled out too fast, too desperate. I was just walking. I didn't... You saw. He tilted his head slightly. The question is what you're going to do about it. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Nothing. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to go back inside and forget I was ever out here. Are you? Yes. She tried to step around him. He didn't move to block her, but somehow his presence was enough to stop her. Please, I just want to go home. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite softness, but a recognition of something. What's your name? She shouldn't tell him, shouldn't give him anything. Liana. Liana. He repeated it like he was testing how it felt. You're not on the guest list. I'm Victoria's cousin, the bride. The bride from the wrong side of the family. It wasn't a question. I can tell, you don't belong here. The words should have stung. Instead, they felt true in a way that made her angry. Neither do you, she said before she could stop herself. His eyebrows rose slightly. Then, impossibly, one corner of his mouth lifted. Not quite a smile, but close. No, I don't. Behind him, she could hear voices. The other men, probably dealing with whatever they'd been doing to that poor bastard who'd stolen something. She didn't want to think about what dealing with meant. Can I go? She asked. Roman studied her for a long moment. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a card. Black, minimal. Just a name, Roman DeLuca, and a phone number. If anyone asks you questions, he said, pressing the card into her palm, you call this number first. Why would anyone ask me questions? Because you're about to walk back into that reception looking like you've seen death. His fingers lingered on hers for just a second too long. And because people notice when Roman DeLuca talks to someone, especially someone like you. Someone like me? Someone real. He stepped back, releasing her hand. Go. Before I change my mind about letting you. Liana didn't need to be told twice. She turned and walked, not ran, though everything in her wanted to, back toward the lights and music. Her legs shook with every step. She could feel his eyes on her the entire way. Inside, the reception continued like nothing had happened. Like a man wasn't being beaten, or worse, in the gardens while people laughed and danced and celebrated. Liana found the nearest bathroom and locked herself in a stall. Her hands were shaking. The business card felt like it was burning through her clutch. Roman DeLuca. She pulled out her phone and searched the name. The results made her stomach drop. Alleged crime boss. Suspected in multiple murders. Runs half the city's underground operations. Never been convicted. Witnesses tend to disappear. She should have thrown the card away. Should have deleted her search history and forgotten the entire night. Instead, she tucked the card into the inner pocket of her clutch and tried to steady her breathing. When she finally emerged from the bathroom, Victoria found her immediately. There you are. I've been looking everywhere. Her cousin was flushed with champagne and happiness, her wedding dress a confection of lace and silk. You disappeared. Just needed some air. Well, you missed the toast, but come on, there's someone I want you to meet. Victoria grabbed her hand, pulling her through the crowd. He's absolutely gorgeous and apparently very interested in... Oh. They'd stopped in front of Roman DeLuca. He stood with a champagne flute in his hand, looking completely at ease among the wealthy guests, like he belonged there more than any of them, like he owned the room without having to prove it. Mr. DeLuca, Victoria said, suddenly nervous, I didn't realize you were still here. I wouldn't miss congratulating the bride. His voice was different here, smoother, more polished, the dangerous edge carefully concealed. Beautiful ceremony. Thank you. This is my cousin Liana. I was just telling her about... We've met. Roman's eyes found Liana's. In the gardens. Victoria's expression went carefully blank. Oh, well, I'll just leave you two to catch up. She disappeared into the crowd with the speed of someone who knew better than to ask questions. Liana stood frozen as Roman stepped closer. You're still here, he observed. It's my cousin's wedding. You could have left. Should have, probably. And yet I didn't. He smiled then. An actual smile. Small and dangerous and entirely too attractive. No, you didn't. What do you want from me? The words came out sharper than she intended. Right now? A dance? You're joking. I don't joke. He set down his champagne and extended his hand. People are watching us. If we stand here talking like this, they'll wonder. If we dance, they'll assume and move on. Assume what? That you're just another woman I'm interested in. Harmless. Forgettable. How flattering. It's protective. Trust me, you don't want to be memorable to the people in this room. She shouldn't take his hand, shouldn't let him touch her, shouldn't do anything except walk away and pray he forgot she existed. But people were watching, and something in his eyes, something that might have been genuine beneath all that carefully controlled danger, made her believe him when he said this was protective. She placed her hand in his. His palm was warm, calloused. The hand of someone who worked with them, who knew violence intimately. He led her to the dance floor where a few other couples swayed to something slow and romantic. When he pulled her close, she couldn't breathe. "Relax," he murmured against her ear. "I'm not going to hurt you." "You hurt that man in the garden." "That man stole from me. Endangered people I protect. You didn't." "How do you know I won't tell someone what I saw?" His hand tightened slightly on her waist. "Because you're smarter than that. And because some part of you understands, you felt it the moment you saw me, that this world is more complicated than the one you're used to." He was right. She had felt it. Something in the way he commanded that garden, the way those men obeyed without question. Power. Real power. Not the borrowed kind that came from money or family names. "Why are you here?" she asked. "At this wedding." "Business. The Ashford family has connections I need." "And you just show up where you want? Do what you want?" "Yes." The simple honesty of it should have terrified her. Instead, it made something inside her twist with an attraction she didn't want to name. They danced in silence for a moment. Liana became aware of his body against hers, solid, controlled, radiating heat. His cologne was subtle, expensive. Everything about him was a contradiction, brutal and refined, dangerous and protective. "You need to forget tonight," he said quietly. "Forget what you saw. Forget my name." Is that a threat? It's advice. And if I don't take it? He pulled back enough to look at her. His expression was unreadable again, but something flickered in those dark eyes. "Then your life becomes significantly more complicated." The song ended. He released her immediately, stepping back like she'd burned him. "Go home, Liana Vale." He said her full name like he'd already memorized it, already looked her up. "Don't come looking for answers. Don't ask questions. Just go back to your normal life and stay there." "How do you know my—" But he was already walking away, disappearing into the crowd with the ease of someone who knew exactly how to become invisible when he wanted to. Liana stood in the middle of the dance floor, her heart racing, her skin still tingling where his hands had been. She should have listened, should have done exactly what he said. But she'd never been good at doing what she was supposed to. 3 days later, the art gallery where Liana worked was quiet on Tuesday mornings. Most of their clientele, the kind who spent 5 figures on abstract paintings, didn't roll out of bed before 11, which meant Liana usually had the place to herself until noon, cataloging new pieces and updating the website. She was in the back room, photographing a sculpture that looked like someone had welded together random car parts and called it art, when the bell above the front door chimed. "Be right there," she called, setting down her camera. When she walked into the gallery's main floor, Roman DeLuca was studying a painting of a woman drowning in flowers. Liana's heart stopped. He looked different in daylight, in her space, still dangerous, still commanding, but somehow more real. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than she made in 6 months, and he turned when she entered with the same controlled precision she remembered. "Liana, how did you find me? I know everything about you." He said it matter-of-factly, not as a threat. "Where you work, where you live, that you have 17,000 in student loans and you're taking night classes in art history, that you haven't dated anyone seriously in 2 years. Her hands clenched into fists. "That's necessary." He moved closer. 3 days ago, you witnessed something you shouldn't have. I let you walk away. That was a mistake. Fear spiked through her. "I haven't told anyone, I swear." "I know, but others don't." "What others?" He glanced toward the gallery windows where morning traffic moved past on the street. "The Salvatore family, my enemies. They have people watching me, and they saw us dance, saw me talk to you, and now they're asking questions about who you are and what you mean to me. I don't mean anything to you. We talked for 5 minutes. It doesn't matter. His jaw tightened. In my world, perception is everything. They see me show interest in someone. They assume that person matters, which makes you leverage. The word hit her like cold water. No, I'm not getting involved in whatever you already are. He pulled out his phone, pulled up a photo, and showed it to her. It was her apartment building, taken yesterday, based on the date stamp. And there, parked across the street, was a black sedan with tinted windows. They're watching you, Roman said quietly, waiting to see if I make contact again, waiting to see if you're valuable enough to use against me. Liana's legs felt weak. She sat down on the bench in front of the drowning woman painting. This is insane. I didn't do anything. You were in the wrong place at the wrong time. He pocketed his phone and crouched in front of her, his eyes level with hers. And then you kissed me. I didn't kiss you. We danced. At the wedding, in the garden, before you ran. You kissed my cheek. The memory slammed into her. She had. Just before fleeing, some insane impulse had made her lean in and press her lips to his cheek. A goodbye. A thank you for not killing her. That was nothing, she whispered. That was everything. His voice was rough. My enemies saw it, photographed it, and now they think you matter to me. But I don't. He stared at her for a long moment. No, you don't. The word should have been a relief. Instead, they stung. So what do I do? She asked. You let me protect you. By doing what? By staying close, making it clear you're under my protection. Anyone who touches you answers to me, and no one in this city is stupid enough to want that. Liana stood abruptly. You want to use me? Make me some kind of, fake girlfriend? To send a message? I want to keep you alive. He rose with her, crowding her space without touching her. This isn't a game. The Salvatore family doesn't make threats. They act. If they decide you're valuable, they'll take you. If they decide you're not, they'll kill you to hurt me anyway. Why? Why would they care about hurting you over some random woman? His expression darkened. Because 3 weeks ago, I killed Marco Salvatore, the heir to their empire, and they've been looking for a way to retaliate ever since. The room spun. Liana grabbed the edge of a nearby pedestal to steady herself. You killed... He tried to move product through my territory, hurt people under my protection. So yes, I killed him. Roman's voice was flat, emotionless. And now his family wants blood, preferably mine. But they'll settle for anyone I care about. But you don't care about me. They don't know that. Liana wanted to scream, wanted to wake up from this nightmare where her boring life had collided with mob violence and murder. I should go to the police. And tell them what? That you witnessed an assault you can't prove happened? That you're being followed by men who'll disappear before the cops arrive? He shook his head. The police can't protect you from this. I can. Why? The question burst out of her. Why do you care? You don't know me. You could just, let them have me. Let this problem solve itself. Something flickered across his face. Pain, maybe. Or regret. Because you're innocent, he said quietly. Because you stumbled into something that wasn't your fault. And because... He stopped, jaw working like he was fighting with himself. Because when you kissed me, I felt something I haven't felt in a very long time. What? Possibility. The word hung between them. This is crazy, Liana whispered. Yes. I should tell you to leave. Yes. I should run as far away from you as I can get. That would be smart. She looked up at him, at this brutal, dangerous man who'd killed someone 3 weeks ago and was standing in her art gallery like he belonged there, at the eyes that had seen things she couldn't imagine and somehow still held something almost tender when they looked at her. If I do this, she said slowly, if I let you, protect me, what does that mean? What do you want from me? Publicly? To be seen with me. Let people think we're involved. Come to events, be photographed, make it believable. And privately? His eyes darkened. Privately, you stay alive. You go about your life. And when this is over, when the Salvatores understand that touching you means war, you walk away and forget I exist. That's it? That's it. It was a lie. She could see it in the tension of his shoulders, hear it in the careful control of his voice. There was more he wasn't saying, more he wanted. But maybe that was okay, because standing there, staring at Roman DeLuca in the morning light filtering through the gallery windows, Liana realized she wanted more too. Okay, she heard herself say. I'll do it. His expression didn't change, but she saw his hands relax slightly, like he'd been prepared for her to refuse. There are rules, he said. Of course there are. You don't go anywhere alone. One of my men will always be nearby. Not intrusive, but present. You don't talk to anyone about me or my business. And if something feels wrong, if you sense any danger at all, you call me immediately. He pulled out another card, the same black design, but this one had a second number written on the back in pen. This is my personal line. Not for business, just for you. She took the card with shaking fingers. Anything else? Yes. He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the heat of him. Don't fall in love with me, Liana. This thing between us, whatever it is, it has an expiration date. When the threat ends, so do we. She should have agreed, should have promised to keep her distance, keep her heart locked away. Instead, she met his eyes and said, Don't make promises you can't keep. For the first time since she'd met him, Roman DeLuca looked surprised. Then his phone buzzed. He checked it, and his expression went cold. I have to go. Marco will be here in 20 minutes, one of my men. He'll stay outside, keep watch. You won't see him, but he'll be there. Wait. But he was already heading for the door. He paused with his hand on the handle. Liana. Yes? For what it's worth. He didn't turn around. I'm sorry you got dragged into this. Then he was gone, leaving her standing alone in a gallery full of expensive art, holding a phone number that might save her life or destroy it. She looked down at the card, at the elegant script spelling out his name, Roman DeLuca, the most dangerous man in the city, and somehow, impossibly, she believed him when he said he'd keep her safe, even if it killed them both. Marco turned out to be a brick wall of a man with a scar running through his left eyebrow and an expression that suggested he'd seen everything twice and wasn't impressed either time. He showed up exactly 20 minutes after Roman left, introduced himself with a grunt, and positioned himself outside the gallery near a coffee shop with a clear view of the entrance. Liana watched him through the window, her stomach churning. This was real. All of it was horrifyingly, dangerously real. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Don't stare at him, makes it obvious. She jumped, nearly dropping her phone. How was he watching her? Cameras? Did he have someone else nearby? Another text. And no, I'm not watching you. Marco told me. Stop being paranoid. Despite everything, she almost laughed. Almost. The rest of the day crawled by. A few customers wandered in, a couple looking for something to match their living room. An older man who spent 40 minutes studying a bronze sculpture before leaving without buying anything. Normal. Boring. Except for the armed guard outside and the knowledge that somewhere in the city, people were deciding whether she was worth kidnapping. At 6, her boss Gerald arrived to close up. He was a thin, nervous man who wore too much cologne and talked too much about his ex-wife. Quiet day? He asked, flipping through the appointment book. Pretty much. Good, good. Listen, I've got a showing tomorrow at 3. Some tech millionaire who wants statement pieces for his new penthouse. Think you can handle the consultation? I've got my therapist at that time. Sure, Gerald. You're a lifesaver. He patted her shoulder awkwardly. You look tired. Everything okay? Just didn't sleep well. Join the club. My insomnia's been a nightmare since Patricia left. Get it? Nightmare? He laughed at his own joke. Anyway, get some rest. You're my best employee. She was his only employee, but she smiled anyway. Outside, Marco was waiting by a black SUV that definitely hadn't been there this morning. Mr. DeLuca wants you to ride with me, he said. No preamble, no explanation. I have a car, which will be driven to your apartment by someone else. You ride with me. He opened the back door. Please. The please sounded like it physically hurt him to say. Liana climbed in. The interior smelled like leather and something sharp. Gun oil, maybe. She'd never been around guns before last week. Now she was apparently surrounded by them. Marco pulled into traffic with the kind of aggressive confidence that suggested he'd been in plenty of car chases and won them all. "So," Liana said after 5 minutes of tense silence, "how long have you worked for Roman?" 15 years. That's a long time. Yes? Do you like it? The work? Marco glanced at her in the rearview mirror. You asking if I like hurting people? No, because I don't. But I'm good at it, and Mr. DeLuca pays well, treats his people right. That's rare in this business. What business exactly? The kind where you don't ask questions. They lapsed back into silence. Liana watched the city slide past, her city, familiar streets suddenly feeling foreign. How many of these buildings did Roman own? How many of these people owed him money or favors or their lives? Her apartment building appeared ahead. Marco pulled up to the curb but didn't let her out immediately. There's going to be a man in the lobby, he said. Name's Petey. He'll be there overnight. Another man, Torres, will replace him at 6 a.m. You won't see them unless there's trouble, but they're there. Understand? I'm being babysat. You're being protected. There's a difference. Doesn't feel like it. Marco's expression softened slightly. Miss Vale, I've been doing this a long time. I've seen what happens to people who don't take protection seriously. So yeah, you're being babysat, and if you're smart, you'll be grateful for it. She wanted to argue, wanted to throw open the door and storm into her building and pretend none of this was happening. Instead, she said, Thank you, Marco. He nodded. Mr. DeLuca will pick you up tomorrow at 7. Wear something nice. You're going to dinner. Where? Somewhere people will see you together. That's the point, remember? Right, the performance. Making her visible as Romans, whatever she was supposed to be. Liana climbed out of the SUV and headed inside. Sure enough, a compact man with salt and pepper hair sat in the lobby pretending to read a newspaper. He glanced up as she passed, gave her the slightest nod, and went back to his paper. Petey, presumably. Her apartment felt smaller than usual, like the walls were pressing in. She dropped her bag on the couch and went to the window, looking down at the street. The black sedan from Roman's photo was gone, but who knew what had replaced it? Her phone buzzed. Roman again. You made it home. Good. She typed back. Are you tracking my phone? Yes. Problem? That's a massive invasion of privacy. So is being kidnapped. I know which one I prefer. She wanted to throw her phone across the room. Instead, she wrote, You said dinner tomorrow. Where? Cipriani's, downtown. Ever been? On my salary? No. Good. First impressions matter. What am I supposed to wear? What am I supposed to say? I don't know how to do this. The typing indicator appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, just be yourself. That's what caught my attention in the first place. Her chest tightened. She stared at the message, reading it 3 times, trying to find the manipulation in it, the angle. But it felt honest in a way that scared her more than threats would have. Okay, she typed, 7 o'clock. I'll see you then. And Liana? Yes? Lock your door. All 3 locks. She looked at her door. She'd never bothered with the chain or the deadbolt before. The neighborhood was safe, and she'd never had a reason to worry. She engaged all 3 locks and heard them click into place like prison bars. That night she barely slept. Every sound in the hallway made her jump. Every car engine on the street below sent her heart racing. She kept thinking about the man in the garden, the sound of breaking bone. Kept wondering how many people Roman had killed. Whether the hands that had held her so carefully on the dance floor had blood on them that wouldn't wash off. At 3 a.m., she gave up on sleep and made coffee. Sat at her tiny kitchen table and pulled up everything she could find about Roman DeLuca online. There wasn't much. A few society page mentions from charity events, always in the background, never the focus. Some business records showing he owned a security company, a chain of restaurants, and 6 properties around the city. All legitimate on paper, all probably fronts for whatever he really did. Then she found the articles about Marco Salvatore's death. 28 years old, shot 3 times in the chest outside a nightclub. No witnesses. No arrests. The Salvatore family had released a statement calling it a tragic loss and promising to seek justice through proper channels, which apparently meant stalking random art gallery workers who'd been in the wrong place at the wrong time. Liana closed her laptop and pressed her palms against her eyes. What was she doing? She should have gone to the police the moment Roman left the gallery. Should have demanded protection, witness relocation, something official and legal. But she knew what he'd said was true. The police couldn't help her. Not against people who made witnesses disappear. At 6:30 the next evening, she stood in front of her closet in her underwear, staring at clothes that suddenly all looked wrong. Too casual, too cheap, too obviously not designed for restaurants where you needed a reservation 3 months in advance. She settled on a dark green dress she'd bought for a gallery opening last year. Simple, fitted, the nicest thing she owned. Paired it with the black heels from the wedding and the pearl earrings her mother had given her before she died. Looking in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. When had she become someone who got dressed up for mob bosses? When had her life turned into something her younger self would have run screaming from? Her buzzer rang at exactly 7 o'clock. "Miss Vale, Mr. DeLuca is here," Petey's voice crackled through the intercom. He sounded different than he looked, younger, almost friendly. "Tell him I'll be right down." She grabbed her clutch, checked her lipstick one last time, and headed downstairs before she could talk herself out of it. Roman stood in the lobby wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. He looked up when she appeared on the stairs, and something shifted in his expression. Not quite a smile, but close. "You look beautiful," he said. The compliment shouldn't have affected her. She knew this was performance, strategy, but heat crept up her neck anyway. "You clean up okay yourself." This time he did smile. Small, almost boyish. It transformed his face, made him look younger, less dangerous. "Ready?" he asked, offering his arm. She took it, hyper-aware of the muscle beneath the expensive fabric, of how easily he could hurt someone if he wanted to. Outside, a black Mercedes waited at the curb, not the SUV from yesterday. This was sleeker, more elegant. Roman opened the door for her himself, and she slid into leather seats that felt like butter. He drove. She'd expected a driver, more bodyguards, an entourage, but it was just them, the city lights reflecting off the windshield as he navigated downtown traffic with casual expertise. "Nervous?" he asked. "Terrified?" "Don't be. I'll do most of the talking. You just have to look like you want to be there." "And do I? Want to be there?" He glanced at her, then back at the road. "I don't know. Do you?" It was a genuine question. She could hear it in his voice. He really didn't know. For all his power and control, he couldn't predict her. "Ask me after dinner," she said. Cipriani's occupied the ground floor of a building that looked like it had been transplanted from Milan. All warm lighting and marble and beautiful people who'd never worried about student loans. A valet took the car, and Roman guided her inside with his hand on the small of her back. The maitre d' recognized him immediately. "Mr. DeLuca, your table is ready." They were led to a corner booth with a view of the entire restaurant. Strategic, Liana realized. Roman could see everyone, watch all the exits, position himself with his back to the wall, always prepared for violence. "Wine?" he asked once they were seated. "I probably shouldn't. Because you need to stay sharp? Or because you're afraid of what you might say if you relax?" She met his eyes. "Both. Fair enough." He ordered a bottle anyway, something Italian she couldn't pronounce, and the waiter disappeared with a bow. Liana looked around the restaurant. Every table was full, every person dripping with money and breeding. "People are staring. They always do. I'm not exactly popular in certain circles. But you come here anyway." "I come here because the food is excellent, and because fuck them." He said it casually, like he was commenting on the weather. "I built what I have from nothing. They inherited their money, and their names, and their little kingdoms. They can stare all they want." The bitterness in his voice surprised her. "You don't like these people. I don't think about them enough to like or dislike them, but they think about me. Wonder how I got so powerful so fast. Wonder what I really do. Wonder if their husbands or wives or children owe me something they don't know about." He leaned back, completely relaxed. Let them wonder. The wine arrived. Roman tasted it, approved it, and the waiter poured 2 glasses before vanishing again. "To new beginnings," Roman said, raising his glass. "Is that what this is? What else would you call it?" "Survival." He studied her over the rim of his glass. "You're probably right." They ordered Roman chose for both of them without asking, which should have annoyed her but somehow didn't, and fell into a silence that wasn't entirely uncomfortable. "Tell me about yourself," he said finally. "The real version, not what I read in background checks." "What do you want to know? Why art? Why work in a gallery that barely pays your bills when you clearly have the intelligence to do something more lucrative?" She sipped her wine, considering. "My mom used to take me to museums when I was a kid. We couldn't afford much, but museums were free on Sundays. She'd tell me stories about the paintings, made up stuff, completely wrong, but it made them come alive." The memory ached. She died when I was 16, cancer, and after that, art was the only thing that still felt like her. Roman's expression softened. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It was a long time ago." She traced the rim of her wine glass. "What about you? How does someone become what you are?" "You mean a criminal?" "I mean powerful." "Same thing, in my case." He paused as their appetizers arrived, something delicate and artfully arranged that probably had a French name. "My father ran numbers for the Giordano family, small-time stuff. He was good at it, loyal, but he had ambitions beyond what they'd allow. So they killed him when I was 12. Made it look like a robbery." Liana's breath caught. "Roman." "I learned two things that day," he continued, his voice flat. "One, loyalty without power is suicide. And two, if you're going to be in this life, you'd better be the one making the decisions." He met her eyes. "So I worked, fought, built my own organization from nothing. And when the Giordanos came to remind me who was in charge, I burned their operation to the ground and salted the earth." "How old were you?" 22. "So young." He'd been so young to carry that much violence, that much rage. "Do you regret it?" she asked quietly. "No, I regret that it was necessary. But I don't regret surviving." Their main courses arrived, some kind of fish she couldn't identify, cooked perfectly and presented like art. They ate in silence for a few minutes, the weight of their conversation settling between them. "You asked me yesterday why I'm helping you," Roman said eventually. "Why I care. You said because I'm innocent. That's part of it. But the truth is," he set down his fork, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked uncertain. "I've spent 15 years building an empire on fear and respect. I've done things that would give you nightmares, hurt people who probably deserved it and some who didn't. And somewhere along the way, I forgot what it felt like to want to protect someone just because they mattered. Not strategically, not politically, just because." Her throat tightened. "I'm not some redemption project." "I know. That's what makes this so fucking complicated." A commotion near the entrance made Roman's hand move toward his jacket. Toward a gun, Liana realized with a jolt. But it was just a minor celebrity making a loud entrance, flash of cameras from the paparazzi outside. Roman relaxed, but his eyes continued scanning the room. "Does it ever stop?" Liana asked. "The vigilance, the constant watching for threats." "No. It becomes part of you, like breathing." "That sounds exhausting." "It is." He looked at her then, really looked at her, and she saw something raw beneath the control. "You asked if I regret what I've become. The answer is no. But sitting here with you, watching you experience this world for the first time, I regret what I'll turn you into if you stay. Maybe I'm stronger than you think. I know exactly how strong you are. That's what worries me." Dessert came. Tiramisu that melted on her tongue, and espresso so strong it made her heart race. Around them, the restaurant began to thin as diners finished their meals and drifted back into the night. Roman paid the check with a black credit card that had no name on it, just numbers. As they stood to leave, he placed his hand on her lower back again, that same possessive gesture from earlier. And Liana realized people were watching. Not just curious glances, actual attention, phones out, pictures being taken. She could imagine the gossip already spreading through whatever social circles these people inhabited. Roman DeLuca with a woman. At Cipriani's? Who is she? Outside, the Mercedes was already waiting. Roman held the door, and she slid inside, hyper-aware that cameras were probably still on them. He climbed in beside her, and they pulled away from the curb. "That went well," he said. "How can you tell?" "Because at least 3 people will have called the Salvatores by now, telling them I had dinner with a beautiful woman who looked at me like I hung the moon." He glanced at her. You're a good actress. The comment stung more than it should have. What makes you think I was acting? His hands tightened on the steering wheel. Liana, you don't get to tell me how I feel. You don't get to decide what this is or isn't. She was angry suddenly, the wine and the fear, and the sheer insanity of the past 3 days boiling over. You show up in my life, drag me into your world, tell me I'm in danger, and then act surprised when I don't treat you like the monster you claim to be. I am a monster. Then why did you save me? Why are you protecting me instead of letting the Salvatores solve your problem? Because... He cut himself off, jaw clenched. Because why, Roman? He pulled the car over abruptly, threw it into park. They were on a side street, dim and quiet. When he turned to her, his eyes were blazing. Because when you kissed me in that garden, something in me woke up that I'd buried 15 years ago. Because you look at me like I'm a person, not a weapon. Because for the first time in longer than I can remember, I want something I can't take and shouldn't have. The air between them crackled. Then stop telling me not to fall for you, Liana whispered. Because it's too late. I already am. He closed his eyes like she'd wounded him. You don't know what you're saying. Yes, I do. Liana, I've killed people. I will kill again. The man you saw in the garden, I didn't just order his punishment. I delivered it myself after you left. Broke his hands, his ribs, put a bullet in his skull, and dumped his body where his family would find it as a warning. Liana reached across the console and took his hand. His skin was warm and she could feel the calluses, the evidence of violence. Then I'm not sorry he's dead. You should be afraid of me. I am. Terrified, actually, but not of you hurting me. I'm afraid of how much I want this. Whatever this is, even though I know it's going to destroy me. Roman stared at their joined hands like he couldn't quite believe they were touching. I told you not to fall in love with me. You also told me this has an expiration date. When the threat ends, so do we. She met his eyes. So maybe we should stop pretending this is just strategy. Maybe we should admit that somewhere between that garden and this car, something real happened. And then what? We ride off into the sunset? You really think this ends well? I think it ends however we decide it ends. I think we get a choice. He laughed, but it sounded broken. You still believe in choices. That's adorable. Don't patronize me. I'm not. I'm envying you. He pulled his hand free and the loss felt physical. You still think we're in control, but we're not. My world doesn't allow for happy endings, Liana. It allows for survival if you're smart and lucky. And I've never been lucky. Then maybe it's time you were. Before she could second-guess herself, she leaned across the console and kissed him. For a moment, he froze. Then his hand came up to cup the back of her head, and he kissed her back with a desperation that stole her breath. He tasted like espresso and something darker, something dangerous. His other hand found her waist, pulled her closer despite the awkward angle. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Roman pressed his forehead against hers. This is a mistake, he said. Probably. You're going to hate me eventually, when you see what I really am. Maybe. Or maybe I'll surprise you. He pulled back enough to look at her, and in his eyes she saw fear, real, genuine fear. I can't protect you from myself. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to be honest. Stop pretending this is just business. For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then, okay, truth. I haven't stopped thinking about you since that wedding. I told myself it was strategy, that keeping you close was tactical. But I lied. I wanted you close because when I'm near you, I remember what it felt like to be human. The confession hung between them, raw and real. Truth, Liana echoed. I should be running. Every logical bone in my body says get away from you as fast as possible, but I can't. Because somehow, impossibly, you make me feel safer than I've ever felt, even though you're the most dangerous thing in my life. Roman's laugh was soft, almost sad. We're both idiots. Probably. He kissed her again, slower this time, tender in a way that made her chest ache. When he pulled away, he started the car. I'm taking you home, he said, and tomorrow this gets harder. The Salvatores will know we're serious now. They'll escalate. How much harder? Depends how stupid they are, but probably very. He pulled back onto the road. You still have time to walk away, Liana. I'll protect you either way. But if we do this, really do this, there's no going back. She thought about her quiet life, her boring job, her safe and predictable existence. Thought about what she was giving up for a man who'd murdered people and would probably do it again. "I don't want to go back," she said. Roman's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Then buckle up, because the easy part is over." They drove through the city in silence, but now it felt different. Charged. Like they'd crossed some invisible line and there was no one crossing it. When they reached her building, Roman walked her to the lobby. Petey was still there, pretending to read his newspaper. "Thank you for dinner," Liana said, suddenly awkward. "Thank you for not running screaming." Roman brushed a strand of hair from her face, the gesture so gentle it broke her heart a little. "Sleep. Tomorrow I'm introducing you to my family." "You have family? Not the kind you're thinking, but yes. And if we're doing this, you need to meet them. Understand what you're getting into." "More than I already do?" "Much more." He kissed her forehead and stepped back. "Lock your door. All 3 locks." "I will." She watched him leave, then rode the elevator up to her apartment. True to her word, she engaged all 3 locks, leaned against the door and tried to process everything that had just happened. She'd kissed Roman DeLuca, admitted she was falling for him, committed to a relationship that would probably end in disaster. And somehow, she wasn't sorry. Her phone buzzed, a text from Roman. "Still not too late to change your mind." She smiled and typed back. "See you tomorrow. You're insane. Takes one to know one. Touché." "Good night, Liana." "Good night, Roman." She fell asleep with her phone in her hand and dreamed of dark eyes and dangerous men and kisses that tasted like the end of the world. The next morning came too fast. Liana woke to sunlight streaming through her curtains and 3 missed calls from Roman. Her heart lurched as she grabbed her phone. "Hello?" "You didn't answer." His voice was tight, controlled in a way that meant he was trying not to sound worried. "I was asleep. It's barely 8. I called at 7:30 and 7:45 and 7:52. She sat up, rubbing her eyes. "Roman, you can't panic every time I don't pick up immediately." "Yes, I can. Until the Salvatore's back off, I can and will." A pause. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Petey's still downstairs, right?" "Yes. And Torres replaced him an hour ago. And there are 2 more men on the roof across the street." He exhaled. "I'm not taking chances." Something warm unfurled in her chest, despite the absurdity of being guarded by armed men. "When do I meet your family?" "Tonight. 6 o'clock. I'm sending Marco to pick you up at 5:30. "Where are we going?" "My house. Well, one of them, the one I actually live in." His voice softened slightly. "Fair warning, they're going to interrogate you, especially Sophia." "Who's Sophia?" "My sister, not by blood, but she might as well be. She runs my books, keeps everyone in line, and has opinions about everything." He paused. "She's protective." "Of you?" "Of what we've built. She'll want to make sure you're not a liability. And if she decides I am, then I'll tell her to mind her own business and she'll ignore me and keep digging anyway." He sounded almost fond. "But you'll be fine. Just be yourself." After they hung up, Liana tried to go about her normal routine. Showered, made coffee, pretended her life hadn't been completely upended. Gerald called to remind her about the 3 o'clock consultation, and she spent 20 minutes researching the tech millionaire online. Some cryptocurrency genius who'd made a fortune before 30 and apparently had terrible taste in art. The consultation went better than expected. The millionaire, a baby-faced kid named Brandon who wore a hoodie that probably cost $3,000, wanted bold pieces that make a statement, which in his case meant enormous canvases covered in neon paint splatters that a toddler could have made. She sold him 4 pieces for a total of $80,000 and earned a commission that would cover 2 months of rent. "You're a miracle worker," Gerald gushed after Brandon left. "How did you get him to buy the Kowalski series? I've been trying to move those for 6 months." "I told him they were investment pieces that would triple in value." "Will they?" "Probably not, but he doesn't know that." Gerald laughed and patted her shoulder. "Take tomorrow off. You've earned it." At 5:30, Marco pulled up in the same black SUV. Liana had changed into jeans and a soft sweater. Roman had said casual, and she was taking him at his word. "Mr. DeLuca's house is in Bridgeport," Marco said as they navigated out of downtown. "About 30 minutes. Is it nice?" "It's a fortress. But yeah, it's nice." They drove through increasingly upscale neighborhoods until the houses became estates with gates and long driveways. Marco turned onto a private road that wound through woods before opening onto a property that made Liana's breath catch. The house was modern, all glass and stone and sharp angles. It sat on at least 5 acres, surrounded by trees that provided privacy, and she suspected excellent cover for security. Cameras were visible at strategic points, and she counted at least 3 men patrolling the grounds. "Welcome to Casa de Luca," Marco said, pulling up to the front entrance. "Boss is waiting inside." The front door opened before Liana could knock. Roman stood there in jeans and a black t-shirt, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. Almost normal, if you ignored the gun visible in the holster at his hip. "You made it," he said. "Did you think I wouldn't?" "I thought you might come to your senses." He stepped aside to let her in. "Fair warning, it's loud in there. Sophia's cooking, which means she's yelling at everyone, and Angelo brought his kids." "Angelo? My second. You'll like him. Everyone likes Angelo." The house's interior was stunning. High ceilings, minimalist furniture, art that actually looked expensive and tasteful. But what struck her most was the noise. Laughter, shouting, the clatter of dishes. It sounded like a family dinner, not a mob meeting. Roman led her through to a massive kitchen where chaos reigned. A woman in her 40s stood at the stove, gesticulating wildly with a wooden spoon while berating a broad-shouldered man who was trying to steal food from a pot. 2 children, maybe 8 and 10, sat at the island doing homework while a teenage girl scrolled through her phone. "Everyone, this is Liana," Roman announced. The room went silent. All eyes turned to her, assessing. The woman at the stove, Sophia, Liana guessed, set down her spoon and wiped her hands on her apron. She was beautiful in a severe way, with dark hair pulled back and eyes that missed nothing. "So you're the one," Sophia said. "The one what?" "The one who's got Roman acting like a lovesick idiot." She crossed her arms. "Let me look at you." Liana stood still while Sophia circled her like a predator evaluating prey. It should have been intimidating. It was intimidating, but something in Sophia's expression suggested this was more protective instinct than actual hostility. "She's pretty," Sophia announced. "Terrible survival instincts, obviously, but pretty." "Sophia," Roman warned. "What? It's true. No sane woman gets involved with you voluntarily." She turned back to Liana. "You know what he does, right? What we all do? I know enough. Enough to run screaming, or enough to stay?" "I'm still here, aren't I?" Sophia's expression softened slightly. "Fair point. Okay, you can stay for dinner, but I'm watching you." The broad-shouldered man laughed. "Don't mind her, she's protective. I'm Angelo." He stuck out a hand the size of a dinner plate. "Those are my kids, Marcus and Sophia, and the teenager pretending we don't exist is my niece Gianna." "Ignore them," Gianna said without looking up from her phone. "They're embarrassing." "You're 17. Everything embarrasses you," Angelo shot back. Liana shook his hand, overwhelmed by the normalcy of it all. These were criminals, people who hurt others for a living. But they were also a family, bickering over dinner and helping kids with homework. "Come on," Roman said, his hand finding the small of her back. "I'll show you around before Sophia puts us to work." He led her through the house, pointing out rooms, a library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a gym that looked like it belonged in a professional facility, an office with monitors showing feeds from dozens of security cameras. "You really do live in a fortress," Liana said. "I have a lot of enemies. Comes with the territory." He paused at a door. "This is my room. You don't have to come in if you don't want to." She pushed the door open. The bedroom was surprisingly simple. A massive bed, dark furniture, more windows overlooking the woods. Personal but not revealing. No photos, no mementos, like he was ready to abandon it at a moment's notice. "It's nice," she said. "It's functional." He leaned against the doorframe, watching her. "You're handling this well, meeting everyone. What did you expect? For me to run screaming like Sophia said?" "Maybe. Most people do, eventually." She turned to face him. "I'm not most people." "No, you're really not." He pushed off the doorframe and crossed to her. "Thank you. For coming. For trying." "Roman, I'm not trying. I'm here because I want to be." He cupped her face in his hands, and for a moment she thought he might kiss her. Instead, he just looked at her like he was memorizing her features. Dinner's ready, Sophia's voice echoed through the house. Get down here before I feed it to the dogs. We don't have dogs, Roman called back. Then I'll get some just to spite you. He smiled, and Liana's heart did something complicated in her chest. This version of Roman, relaxed, almost playful, was more dangerous than the controlled killer from the garden. Because this version she could fall in love with completely. Dinner was loud and chaotic and wonderful. Sophia had made enough food to feed an army: pasta, chicken, salad, bread that was still warm from the oven. Everyone talked over each other, arguing about everything from politics to sports to whether Marcus had actually finished his math homework. So Liana, Sophia said, serving her a third helping of pasta despite her protests, what do your parents think about you dating Roman? Sophia, Roman said, his voice dropping to a warning. What? It's a valid question. My mom died when I was 16, Liana said, and my dad left when I was 4, so his opinion doesn't really count. The table went quiet. Sophia looked stricken. I'm sorry, I didn't mean… It's fine. It was a long time ago. Liana took a sip of wine. What about you? How did you end up in this family? Sophia glanced at Roman, who gave a slight nod. Roman saved my life when I was 19, she said. I was dating a guy who turned out to be connected to the Giordano family. When I tried to leave him, he beat me half to death and locked me in his apartment. Roman found out, broke down the door, and put 3 bullets in the bastard. Jesus, Liana breathed. Then he got me a lawyer, paid for my medical bills, and offered me a job. Told me I was too smart to waste my life on men who didn't deserve me. Sophia's eyes shone. I've been with him ever since. We all have. Everyone at this table. Roman gave us a second chance when no one else would. Angelo nodded. I was in prison for manslaughter. Killed a man who was hurting my sister. Self-defense. But the system didn't care. I was looking at 20 years until Roman's lawyers got my case overturned. He hired me the day I got out. And he pays for my kids' school, Angelo continued. Private education, the best there is. Because he says children shouldn't pay for their parents' choices. Marcus, the 8-year-old, piped up. Uncle Roman helped me with my science project. We built a volcano, and it exploded everywhere, and Mom was mad, but Uncle Roman said it was awesome. It was awesome, Roman confirmed, completely serious. Best volcano I've ever seen. Liana looked around the table at these people. Criminals, yes, but also survivors. People who'd been broken by the world and found family in each other. And at the center of it all was Roman, the man who'd killed for them and protected them and apparently helped 8-year-olds with science projects. You're not what I expected, she said to him quietly. Disappointed? Opposite of disappointed. His hand found hers under the table, squeezed once. After dinner, the kids went to watch a movie while the adults moved to the living room. Sophia poured whiskey for everyone, and the conversation turned serious. The Salvatores made a move today, Angelo said. Nothing direct, but they've been asking around about Liana, who she is, where she works, who her people are. They won't find much, Roman said. She doesn't have connections to anyone in our world, which makes her perfect leverage. Sophia's expression was grim. They can take her without starting a war with another family. They can try. Roman's voice was cold. Anyone who touches her dies. I've made that clear. Clear to who? Liana asked. To everyone who matters. I sent word through 3 different channels. Liana Vale is under my personal protection. Anyone who harms her or threatens her in any way will answer to me directly. And that works? Just saying she's protected? In our world? Yes. My reputation is built on following through. When I make a promise, I keep it. When I make a threat, I execute it. He met her eyes. They know I'm not bluffing. But they might test it anyway, Sophia said. The Salvatores are desperate. Losing Marco hurt them financially and politically. They need to retaliate or look weak. Let them try. I'm ready. The casual confidence in his voice should have been reassuring. Instead, it made Liana's stomach churn. Because ready meant violence, meant people dying, possibly including Roman himself. What if we negotiated, she found herself saying. What if there was a way to end this without more bloodshed? The room went silent. Then Angelo laughed, but it wasn't cruel. You really are new to this. There's no negotiating with the Salvatores, Sophia explained. Not after Roman killed their heir. It's blood debt now. Either we crush them completely or they come after us forever. So those are the only options. Kill or be killed. Welcome to our world, Sophia said, not unkindly. It's not pretty, but it's honest. Liana looked at Roman. Is she right? Is there really no other way? I wish there was. But yes, she's right. The moment I pulled that trigger, this path was set. Now we see it through. Before Liana could respond, every phone in the room buzzed simultaneously. Roman checked his, and his expression went deadly. What? Angelo was already standing. Fire at the warehouse on 5th, the one we use for storage. Accident? Not likely. The security system was disabled 5 minutes before it started. Roman's jaw clenched. This is the Salvatore's opening move. Sophia was already typing on her phone. How bad? Building's a total loss, but everyone got out. I'm getting confirmations now. He looked at Liana. I have to go. Marco will take you home. Let me come with you. Absolutely not. This is exactly what they want. To draw me out, make me vulnerable. I'm not bringing you anywhere near an active threat. But, Liana, he gripped her shoulders. I need to know you're safe. Please, let Marco take you home, and I'll call you when this is handled. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could help somehow, but the look in his eyes stopped her. This wasn't negotiable. Okay, she said, but you call me. The second you're safe, you call. I promise. He kissed at her forehead, hard and quick. Then he was moving, Angelo and Sophia falling into step beside him. The easy family dinner evaporated, replaced by the cold efficiency of people preparing for war. Marco appeared at her elbow. Come on, Miss Vale. Let's get you home. The drive back felt longer than 30 minutes. Liana watched the city pass, her mind racing. The warehouse was just the beginning, she knew. The Salvatores were escalating, testing Roman's defenses, and she was the weakness they'd identified. Marco, she said, be honest with me. How bad is this going to get? He was quiet for a long moment. Bad. The Salvatores have been planning this since Marco died. They've been gathering allies, building resources. This fire? It's them announcing they're ready for war. And Roman can win? Roman's never lost, but there's always a first time. The honesty was somehow worse than reassurance would have been. At her building, Torres was waiting in the lobby. Marco walked her up to her apartment, checked every room, made sure the windows were locked. I'll be right outside your door tonight, he said. Torres stays in the lobby. You don't leave this apartment for any reason unless Roman or I personally come to get you. Understood? Yes. And Miss Vale? Don't open the door for anyone. Not the police, not the fire department, not your neighbor. No one. If someone knocks, you call me immediately. After he left, Liana sat on her couch and tried not to think about Roman walking into danger. Tried not to imagine bullets and fire and blood. She turned on the TV looking for news about the warehouse fire. The local news had picked it up. A major blaze in the warehouse district, cause under investigation. No casualties reported. The building belonged to a shell corporation that would take weeks to trace back to Roman's organization. Her phone rang at 11. Roman's name on the screen made her heart leap. Are you okay? She answered. I'm fine. The fire's out, minimal damage beyond the building itself. No one was hurt. And the Salvatores? Made their point. Now we make ours. His voice was tired. I'm sorry our dinner got interrupted. Don't apologize. Your family is wonderful. Terrifying, but wonderful. They liked you too. Sophia called you surprisingly tolerable, which from her is a glowing endorsement. Despite everything, Liana smiled. When will I see you again? Tomorrow. I'm moving you. What? Your apartment isn't secure enough. Too many access points, too public. I have a property in Riverside, gated community, security, controlled entry. You'll stay there until this is over. Roman, I can't just abandon my life. Your life won't matter if you're dead. His voice hardened. This isn't a request, Liana. The Salvatores burned down a building worth $3 million just to send a message. What do you think they'll do to you if they get the chance? She wanted to fight him on it. Wanted to insist she could take care of herself. But the fear in his voice, real, undisguised fear, stopped her. Okay, she said. When? Marco will pick you up at 9. Pack what you need for a few weeks. Everything else we can get you. A few weeks? However long it takes. I'm not letting you go back to your normal life until every threat is eliminated." After they hung up, Liana sat in the dark and let reality sink in. She was being relocated, protected, hidden away like a valuable asset. Because that's what she'd become in Roman's world. Something to be guarded, defended, kept safe at all costs. She should have been angry, should have resented being treated like a possession. But all she felt was a bone-deep terror that Roman might not survive whatever was coming, that this war with the Salvatores would take him from her before she ever really had him. The next morning, she packed methodically. Clothes, toiletries, her laptop, the few photos she owned of her mother. Marco arrived at exactly 9, along with 2 other men who carried her bags to an SUV with tinted windows. The drive to Riverside took 40 minutes. The property was everything Roman had promised. A modern condo in a luxury building with actual armed guards at the gate. Her unit was on the top floor, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen that was twice the size of her apartments, floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the river. "Mr. DeLuca had it stocked for you," Marco said, gesturing to the fridge. "Food, supplies, whatever you need. There's also a panic room in the master closet, hidden door behind the shoe rack. If anything happens, you get in there and press the button. It alerts me, Roman, and every security guard in the building." "You really think someone could get in here? I think we're not taking chances." He handed her a new phone, sleeker than her old one, probably cost more too. "This is encrypted, only calls Roman's people, and we can track it anywhere. Your old phone is being deactivated." "Marco, this is necessary. I know it feels like prison, but it's temporary, and it's better than the alternative." After he left, Liana explored her new temporary home. Everything was expensive, impersonal, perfect. Like a luxury hotel where she'd be staying indefinitely. She stood at the windows and watched the river, feeling untethered from her real life. Her new phone rang. "Roman." "You made it," he said. "Your definition of protective custody is nicer than most." "Only the best for you." A pause. "I know this is hard, asking you to hide while I handle this." "I hate it, but I understand why. Sophia wants to visit tomorrow, if you're up for it. She said something about teaching you to shoot." "Shoot? As in guns?" "As in self-defense, in case something goes wrong." His voice went rough. "I don't plan on anything going wrong, but Sophia's right. You should know how to protect yourself." "Okay, send her over." "Liana, He stopped, and she heard voices in the background. "I have to go. There's a meeting, but I'll call you tonight." "Be careful." "Always am." But he wasn't, she thought after he hung up. Roman took risks constantly, put himself in danger to protect others, and sooner or later, his luck was going to run out. The next 3 days blurred together. Sophia came and taught her to shoot, which was terrifying and empowering in equal measure. Angelo stopped by with his kids, who treated the fancy condo like an adventure. Gianna brought homework and complained about boys, while Liana pretended to understand teenage drama. They were keeping her distracted, she realized, making sure she didn't feel isolated or abandoned, making sure she felt like part of the family even while she was locked away. Roman called every night, usually late, always tired. He told her about the moves they were making, consolidating territory, calling in favors, preparing for the Salvatore's next attack. He didn't tell her the violent parts, but she could read between the lines. On the 4th night, he didn't call. By midnight, Liana was pacing. She called his number 3 times, got voicemail each time. Tried Marco, got the same. At 1 a.m., someone knocked on her door. She froze. Marco had said never open for anyone. But what if it was news about Roman? What if something had happened? "Who is it?" she called. "Angelo, let me in." Relief flooded through her. She opened the door. Angelo's face was grim. Behind him stood Sophia, and neither of them looked happy. "What happened?" Liana asked, her heart racing. "Where's Roman?" "There was an incident," Angelo said carefully. "The Salvatores hit one of our clubs. There was shooting. Roman's fine," he added quickly as Liana swayed. "He's alive, but 3 of our people are dead, and he's dealing with it. I need to see him." "That's why we're here," Sophia stepped forward. "He's at his house, and he's not okay. Won't talk to anyone, locked himself in his office. But maybe he'll talk to you." Liana didn't hesitate. "Take me to him." The drive to Roman's house was tense and silent. When they arrived, the place was lit up like Christmas, security everywhere. Angelo led her inside and pointed to the office. "We'll be in the kitchen if you need us," he said. Liana knocked on the office door. No answer. "Roman, it's me. Let me in." Silence. Then the sound of a lock turning. She pushed the door open. Roman sat at his desk, a bottle of whiskey in front of him, his shirt streaked with blood that probably wasn't his. He looked up when she entered, and the devastation in his eyes nearly broke her. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "Too bad. I am." She closed the door behind her and crossed to him. "What happened?" "They walked into my club and opened fire, targeted my people, killed 3 of them just to prove they could." His hands clenched into fists. "One of them was 22, just a kid, and I got him killed because I didn't see this coming. This isn't your fault. It's exactly my fault. I started this war when I killed Marco Salvatore. Everything that's happened since, the fire, the attacks, those deaths, it's all on me." She knelt in front of him, taking his hands in hers. They were shaking. "You killed Marco because he was trafficking children. You did the right thing. The right thing got people killed. The Salvatores got people killed, not you." He pulled his hands away, stood abruptly. "You don't understand. This is what I am. Death follows me. Everyone I care about either leaves or dies, and I can't—" His voice cracked. "I can't watch you become another casualty." "Then don't push me away. Let me be here." "Liana, they're not stopping. They're going to keep coming until one of us is dead, and I will not let that be you, which means I have to end this permanently." The word hung in the air. Permanent meant war, meant wiping out the Salvatore family completely. "When?" she asked quietly. 2 days. We hit them at their distribution center, cut off their revenue stream. Then we take out their remaining leadership. No half measures, no mercy. You're talking about killing people. I'm talking about survival." He met her eyes. "This is who I am, Liana. This is what I do. If you can't accept that—" She stood and kissed him, hard, desperate, trying to pour everything she felt into it. When she pulled back, his eyes were wet. "I accept you," she said. "All of you. The parts that protect and the parts that destroy. I'm not leaving. You should. I know, but I'm not." He pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. And in that moment, she felt his fear, real and raw and human. He wasn't the controlled killer from the garden or the confident leader from dinner. He was just a man who'd seen too much death and was terrified of losing one more person. "Stay tonight," he whispered. "Please. I don't want to be alone. I'm not going anywhere." They ended up in his bed, not having sex, but just holding each other. Roman fell asleep first, his face pressed against her shoulder, one arm wrapped around her waist like he was afraid she'd disappear. Liana stayed awake, listening to him breathe, knowing that in 2 days he was going to walk into hell and might not come back. And there was nothing she could do except wait and hope that love was enough to bring him home. Roman woke before dawn, his body going rigid the moment consciousness returned. Liana felt the shift immediately, the way his breathing changed, how his arm tightened around her waist before he remembered to relax. "You're still here," he murmured against her hair. "Told you I wasn't leaving." He didn't respond, just held her closer for another minute before pulling away and sitting up. In the gray morning light filtering through the windows, she could see the exhaustion etched into his face. He looked older than his 35 years, worn down by violence and responsibility. "I need to get ready," he said. "The attack is tonight." The words sent ice through her veins. "Already? We moved it up. The Salvatores are planning something for tomorrow. We intercepted communications. If we wait, we lose the advantage." He stood, reaching for clothes draped over a chair. "Sophia's coming to take you back to the condo." "I want to stay." "Absolutely not. This house could become a target once we move. You need to be somewhere they can't find you." Liana sat up, pulling the sheets around her. "Roman, what if something goes wrong? What if you don't come back?" He paused, shirt halfway on. "Then Angelo takes over. The family's protected, the business continues. Everything's in place." "That's not what I meant." "I know." He finished dressing, then sat on the edge of the bed. "But it's the only answer I can give you. I'm going into this expecting to survive. Anything else is weakness, and weakness gets you killed. Is that what you think I am? A weakness?" His jaw tightened. "You're the only thing I'm afraid to lose. So, yes, you're my greatest weakness, and I'm sending you away so you don't become my death." Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He checked it, and whatever he saw made his expression go cold. "They hit the Riverside building," he said quietly. 20 minutes ago. Liana's breath stopped. "What?" Fire alarm was pulled, evacuated the whole building. When people came back, 3 units had been broken into. Yours was one of them. His eyes met hers. "They were looking for you. If you'd been there. But I wasn't. I was here with you. By accident. Pure luck." He stood abruptly, rage radiating off him. "They broke into a secured building in the middle of the night, bypassed security, and went straight for your unit. Someone on the inside helped them. Someone gave them access. Marco said the building was safe. I said the building was safe, and I was wrong." He pulled out his phone, already dialing. "Angelo, we have a leak. Riverside was hit. I want everyone who had access to that building in my office within the hour. Yes, everyone. I don't care if they've been with us for 20 years. If they knew where Liana was staying, they're suspect." He hung up and turned to Liana. "Pack. You're coming with me to the estate, and you're not leaving my sight until this is over." "Roman, not negotiable. They found you once. They'll find you again if I let you out of my sight. So you stay with me, behind armed guards, until every Salvatore is dead or in the ground. Understand?" She understood. Understood that something had broken in him with this latest attack. That the careful control he'd maintained was fracturing under the weight of protecting her while preparing for war. Sophia arrived 30 minutes later looking murderous. "Torres was on duty," she said without preamble. "Been with us 8 years, 3 kids, never given us reason to doubt him, but his bank account shows a $50,000 deposit 2 days ago." "Where is he?" "Waiting in the car. I didn't tell him why we needed him." Her eyes were flat, emotionless. "Want me to handle it?" "No, I will." Roman looked at Liana. "Stay here with Sophia. I'll be back in 10 minutes. "Roman, what are you going to do?" But he was already walking out, Angelo falling into step beside him. Sophia closed the door and turned to Liana. "You don't want to know," she said, "and you don't want to see it. Trust me. He's going to kill Torres. Torres sold you out for 50 grand. Put your life at risk. What do you think happens to people who betray this family?" Liana sat heavily on the bed. "How do you live with it? The violence, the killing." Sophia poured herself coffee from the pot Roman kept in his room. "You know how many times men tried to kill me before Roman?" 6. 6 different times. I thought I was going to die because some man decided I was more valuable dead than alive. Roman taught me to shoot, to fight, to protect myself. He gave me power. So yeah, I can live with the violence because the alternative is being a victim. But innocent people. There are no innocent people in this world, Liana. Just people who've been caught and people who haven't. Sophia's expression softened slightly. "Look, I get it. You're new. You still think there's a clean way to survive this life. But there isn't. There's only strong and weak, predator and prey. Roman makes sure we're never prey." From somewhere outside, a single gunshot cracked through the morning air. Liana flinched. Sophia didn't even blink. "That's one less leak," Sophia said. "Now get dressed. We have work to do." By the time Roman returned, Liana was packed and trying not to think about the fact that a man had just died because of her. Roman's expression was unreadable, his hands clean, but his eyes empty in a way that made her stomach turn. "Let's go," was all he said. The drive to his main estate, different from the house where they'd had dinner, apparently he owned several properties, took 45 minutes. This one was even more fortified, with actual guard towers and walls that looked like they could withstand a siege. "Welcome to the compound," Angelo said, helping carry her bags. "This is where we come when shit gets real." Inside, the place was buzzing with activity. Men and women moved with purpose, checking weapons, studying maps, talking in low, urgent voices. This wasn't a family preparing dinner. This was an army preparing for battle. Roman led her to a bedroom on the 2nd floor, secured with a door that looked like it belonged in a bank vault. "This is the safest room in the building," he said. "Reinforced walls, bulletproof windows, and a direct tunnel to the garage if we need to evacuate. You stay here until I come get you." "How long?" "The operation starts at 10 tonight. If everything goes according to plan, it'll be over by midnight." He set her bags down. "If it doesn't, it could take days. And you'll be there, in the middle of it. I lead from the front, always have." Liana grabbed his arm. Don't. Don't do that thing where you act like you're invincible. You're not. You could die tonight. Yes. That's it? Just yes? What do you want me to say? That I'll be careful? That I promise to come back? His voice roughened. I can't promise that. All I can promise is that I'll fight like hell to survive. And if I don't, Angelo will make sure you're taken care of. I don't want to be taken care of. I want you alive. He pulled her into his arms, and she felt him shake. I know. I want that too. But wanting doesn't change what I have to do tonight. They stood there for a long moment, holding each other like the world might end. Which, Liana supposed, it might. Finally, Roman pulled back. I have to brief the team. Sophia will bring you lunch. If you need anything, I know. Ask Sophia. Stay in the room. Don't do anything stupid. Exactly. He kissed her forehead. I'll see you when this is over. After he left, Liana explored her prison. The room was nice enough, king bed, private bathroom, even a small sitting area with books and a television. But the reinforced door and bulletproof windows made it clear this was a fortress, not a bedroom. She tried to read but couldn't focus. Tried to watch TV, but everything felt trivial compared to what was happening. Finally, she just sat on the bed and waited, her mind creating increasingly horrific scenarios of how the night could go wrong. Sophia brought lunch at noon, sandwiches and fruit that Liana couldn't bring herself to eat. He's going to be fine, Sophia said, sitting beside her. I've seen Roman walk into worse situations and come out without a scratch. You don't know that. No, but I believe it. You have to believe it too, or you'll drive yourself crazy. How many of these have you been through, operations like this? Sophia was quiet for a moment. Too many. The first few I threw up from the stress. Couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Then I learned to compartmentalize. Focus on what I can control. Logistics, planning, making sure everyone has what they need. The rest is out of my hands. I don't know how to do that. Compartmentalize. You learn or you break. Sophia squeezed her hand. For what it's worth, Roman's different with you. More focused. He's got something to fight for now beyond just survival. Is that good or bad? Depends on whether it makes him careful or reckless. We'll find out tonight. The hours crawled by. At 6, Angelo stopped by to update her. Everyone's in position. The Salvatores don't know we're coming. First wave hits at 10 exactly. First wave? We're hitting 3 locations simultaneously. Their distribution center, their money house, and the building where their leadership meets. Cut off their money, their product, and their command structure all at once. And Roman? Leading the team on the leadership building. It's the most dangerous, but also the most critical. If we take out their top people, the rest will fold or run. After Angelo left, Liana paced the room like a caged animal. She understood why she had to stay here, why Roman couldn't risk her safety. But understanding didn't make it easier. At 9:30, Sophia appeared in the doorway fully armed, gun at her hip, knife strapped to her thigh, wearing tactical gear that made her look like she'd stepped out of an action movie. I'm heading out, she said. I'll be coordinating from the command center, making sure communications stay clear. Marco's outside your door. Don't open it for anyone else. Sophia, wait. Is Roman... Does he know how much... Liana struggled for words. Does he know I love him? Sophia smiled, sad and knowing. Yeah, he knows. He's just too scared to say it back in case it makes losing you hurt more. She paused at the door. But for the record, he loves you too, more than he's loved anything in 15 years. So if that helps you sleep tonight, there it is. Then she was gone, and Liana was alone with her fear and the knowledge that somewhere in the city, the man she loved was preparing to kill or be killed. At exactly 10 o'clock, gunfire erupted somewhere in the distance. Liana heard it even through the reinforced walls, a staccato crack, crack, crack that made her heart stop. More gunfire followed, closer this time. Then an explosion that rattled the windows. She grabbed her phone. No signal. They'd probably jammed communications to prevent the Salvatores from calling for help, which meant she had no way of knowing what was happening, whether Roman was alive or bleeding out in some warehouse. Another explosion, shouting from somewhere in the compound, running footsteps in the hallway. Then Marco was pounding on her door. Miss Vale, we need to move. Now! Liana unlocked the vault door. Marco stood there with 2 other armed men, all looking tense. What's happening? The Salvatores counterattacked. Hit 2 of our safe houses and are pushing toward this location. We're evacuating you to the secondary site. What about Roman? Still at the target location, no contact for 20 minutes. 20 minutes. In a gunfight, that might as well be forever. They rushed her down a back staircase to a garage where 3 SUVs were waiting, engines running. Marco pushed her into the middle vehicle, and they took off with a screech of tires. The drive was chaos. Liana could hear gunfire behind them, see flames rising in the distance. The city had become a war zone. How did they know, she asked. How did the Salvatores know to counterattack? They didn't. This was already planned. They were hitting us at the same time we hit them. Pure coincidence, but it fucked our timing. Marco's jaw was tight. Mr. DeLuca's team is pinned down. We're trying to send reinforcements, but our people are scattered. We have to help him. Our job is to keep you safe. That's what he'd want. I don't care what he'd want. Turn around. Miss Vale. I said turn around. If Roman's pinned down, if he needs help, I'm not running away while he dies. Please, Marco. He'd do the same for any of you. Marco exchanged glances with the driver. Then, incredibly, he nodded. You stay in the car. You don't get out no matter what. Understood? Understood. They turned back toward the city center, toward the sound of gunfire and chaos. Liana's phone buzzed, signal returning as they got closer. A text from an unknown number. North Warehouse on Pier 12, Roman pinned inside with 6 men. Salvatores have 20 plus outside. Send help. Angelo. Pier 12, Liana said, showing Marco the message. That's 15 minutes from here. Hold on. Hold. The drive took 10 minutes of illegal turns and blown red lights. When they arrived at Pier 12, the scene was worse than Liana had imagined. The warehouse was surrounded by vehicles, men with guns visible in the streetlights. Gunfire echoed from inside the building. Marco's radio crackled. This is DeLuca. Need immediate extraction. Multiple casualties. Running low on ammunition. Roman's voice. He was alive. Relief flooded through Liana so intensely she felt dizzy. Boss, this is Marco. I've got reinforcements. Hold position. We're coming in. Negative. Too many of them. Fall back and... Static cut him off. Then an explosion that lit up the night sky. Part of the warehouse's roof collapsed in flames. Liana was out of the SUV before Marco could stop her. She heard him shouting, felt hands grab for her, but she was already running toward the warehouse, toward Roman. The heat from the fire hit her first, then the acrid smell of smoke and gunpowder. She could hear screaming from inside, men shouting orders. More gunfire, closer now. Someone tackled her from behind, driving her to the ground. She fought, kicking and clawing, until she heard Angelo's voice in her ear. Stop! Stop fighting me! What the hell are you doing? Roman's in there. He's trapped. I know. We're getting him out. But you running in there gets you both killed. More of Roman's men had arrived, at least 20 of them, armed and moving with military precision. They advanced on the warehouse, laying down covering fire. The Salvatores returned fire but began falling back, outnumbered now. A section of the warehouse wall exploded outward. Through the smoke and flames, 6 figures emerged. Roman in front, blood on his face but moving under his own power. Behind him, 3 of his men supported 2 others who looked badly injured. Liana broke free from Angelo and ran. Roman saw her, and his expression went from relief to fury in an instant. What the fuck are you doing here? He shouted over the gunfire. Saving you, apparently. I told you to stay at the compound. The rest of his words were cut off by a bullet that missed his head by inches. He grabbed Liana and threw her behind a car, his body covering hers as more bullets tore through the air around them. Get her out of here, he ordered Angelo. Now! Not without you, Liana said. Liana, so help me. Another explosion, this one inside the warehouse. The whole structure began to collapse, flames shooting into the night sky. Roman hauled her up and ran, Angelo and the others following. They piled into vehicles and fled as the warehouse became an inferno behind them. In the SUV, Liana finally got a good look at Roman. Blood ran from a cut above his eye. His shirt was torn and scorched, and he was favoring his right side like his ribs were damaged. But he was alive. You disobeyed me, he said, his voice dangerous and low. You were dying. I had it under control. You had 20 men surrounding you and the building was on fire. That's not under control. That's suicide. And you running into active gunfire? What the hell is that?
Love, you idiot. It's called love, and making sure you don't die for some stupid war that... He kissed her, hard and desperate and tasting like smoke and blood. When he pulled back, his eyes were wet. Don't ever do that again, he whispered. Don't ever put yourself at risk for me. I can't. If something happened to you because of me, then don't put yourself at risk either. Don't lead from the front when you could lead from somewhere you won't get shot. That's not who I am. Then deal with me being the same way. Angelo, driving, caught her eye in the rearview mirror and smiled. She's got you there, boss. Roman leaned back, wincing as his ribs protested. How bad is it? The operation? Distribution center is destroyed. Money house is ours. Leadership building? Angelo hesitated. 3 of their top people are dead, but Giovanni Salvatore escaped. He's still out there.
Giovanni. Roman's expression went cold. He's their underboss. Smart, ruthless, and now he's in charge with everything to prove. So it's not over. No, but we hurt them badly. They'll need time to regroup, rebuild, which gives us time to prepare for the next round. They drove to yet another property. Apparently Roman owned half the real estate in the city. This one was a penthouse downtown. Security tight, but less fortress-like than the compound. A doctor was waiting when they arrived. He examined Roman, confirmed 3 cracked ribs and a concussion, but nothing life-threatening. Patched him up with the efficiency of someone who'd done this many times before. After the doctor left, Roman and Liana were finally alone. He sat on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing while she cleaned the remaining blood from his face with a damp cloth. I killed 7 people tonight, he said quietly. Shot 4, stabbed 2, broke one's neck with my hands. And I don't feel anything. No guilt, no remorse, just empty. They were trying to kill you. That doesn't make it okay. That doesn't make me less of a monster. She set down the cloth and took his face in her hands. You're not a monster. You're a man trying to survive in a world that doesn't forgive weakness. That doesn't make you evil. It makes you human. How can you still look at me like that, after everything you've seen tonight? Because I see you, not just what you do, but why you do it. You protect your people. You built a family from broken pieces and kept them safe. Yes, you kill, but you kill to protect, not for pleasure. There's a difference. Is there? I think so. I have to believe so. Because otherwise, what are we doing? Why am I here if not because I believe you're worth saving? He pulled her into his lap, careful of his ribs, and buried his face in her hair. I love you. I should have said it before. I love you, and I'm terrified that loving you will get you killed. I love you too, and I'm terrified of the same thing, but I'm more terrified of losing you because we were too scared to fight for this. They stayed like that for a long time, holding each other while outside the city burned and the war raged on. Somewhere, Giovanni Salvatore was planning his next move. Somewhere, more violence waited. But in that moment, in that room, they had each other. And for now, that had to be enough. Roman's phone buzzed. He checked it, and something in his expression shifted. What? Liana asked. Giovanni sent a message. He wants to meet, negotiate terms. That's good, right? Maybe you can end this without more killing. Or it's a trap, a way to get me alone and vulnerable. So you won't go. Roman was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. Part of me thinks this is our chance to end it. The other part knows that sitting down with Giovanni means putting myself at his mercy. What does your gut say? My gut says this is how wars end. Not with more shooting, but with 2 men in a room deciding they're tired of watching their people die. He met her eyes. But my gut also says Giovanni wants revenge for his nephew, that he'll smile and shake my hand and put a bullet in my head the moment I let my guard down. Then bring backup, make it neutral ground. He suggested the old Marino restaurant, closed down years ago, neutral territory, public enough that an ambush would be risky. When? Tomorrow night, 9 o'clock. Liana's stomach clenched. That's not much time to prepare. Which is the point. He wants me off balance, making decisions without enough information. Roman stood, wincing at the pain in his ribs. I need to think. Talk to Angelo and Sophia, figure out if this is salvageable or suicide. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. No. You stay here, hidden, protected. This meeting is dangerous, even if it's legitimate. She wanted to argue, but saw the determination in his eyes. This wasn't negotiable. Okay, but Roman, come back to me. Whatever happens at that meeting, you come back. I'll do my best. That's all I can promise. That night she lay awake while Roman slept fitfully beside her, his breathing uneven from the cracked ribs. She stared at the ceiling and thought about tomorrow, about the meeting that could end the war or end Roman's life. And she realized that somewhere in the past few weeks, her world had shrunk to the size of one person. That Roman's survival mattered more than her own safety, more than her old life, more than anything. She'd fallen in love with a killer, and now she'd have to live with the consequences, whatever they turned out to be. Morning came with gray skies and the kind of cold rain that felt personal. Roman was already awake when Liana opened her eyes, standing at the window in just his pants, staring out at the city like he could see all its secrets. "You didn't sleep," she said. "Couldn't. Kept running scenarios for tonight." He didn't turn around. "Angelo thinks it's a trap. Sophia agrees. They want me to send a representative instead of going myself." "But you're going anyway. Giovanni asked for me specifically. If I send someone else, it looks weak, like I'm afraid." "You should be afraid. He wants you dead." "Probably." Roman finally turned to face her, and the exhaustion in his eyes was staggering. "But if there's even a chance this ends without more bloodshed, I have to take it. Too many people have died already." Liana got out of bed and crossed to him. In the gray morning light, she could see every scar on his torso, bullet wounds, knife marks, evidence of a life lived violently. She traced one with her finger, a puckered circle just below his ribs. "When did you get this?" 3 years ago. Ambush in a parking garage. The guy who shot me didn't get a second chance." "Do you remember all of them? Everyone you've killed?" He was quiet for a moment. "Yes. Every face, every name when I knew it. People think you get numb to it after a while, but you don't. You just get better at carrying the weight." "What if you could put it down? The weight? What if tonight Giovanni actually wants peace? Then I'd be the luckiest bastard alive. But Liana, you need to understand, even if we make peace, even if this war ends, I'm still what I am. I'll still run this organization, still make decisions that get people hurt or killed. The violence doesn't end just because the Salvatores back off." "I know. I'm not asking you to become someone else. I'm just asking you not to die tonight." He pulled her close, careful of his ribs. "I'm going to do everything in my power to come back to you. But if I don't do the farewell speech. You're coming back. Liana, you're coming back because I won't accept any other outcome. So get that through your thick skull and start acting like someone who plans to survive." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Yes, ma'am." The day passed in agonizing slowness. Angelo came by with updates. Giovanni had confirmed the meeting, suggested they each bring 2 men for security, no more. The restaurant had been checked and cleared of explosives or listening devices. Everything pointed to a legitimate attempt at negotiation, which made Roman more nervous, not less. "It's too clean," he said, pacing the penthouse living room. "Giovanni's not stupid enough to think I'd walk in blind. So either he's genuinely ready to talk, or he's got something planned that we haven't anticipated." "Maybe he's just tired," Sophia suggested. She'd arrived an hour ago, all business in her tactical gear. He lost his nephew, 3 of his top lieutenants, and most of his revenue streams. Maybe he's smart enough to know when he's beaten. Giovanni Salvatore doesn't know the meaning of beaten. His family's been in this city for 3 generations. They don't fold because of one bad week. "Then what do you think he wants?" Roman stopped pacing. "Me. Dead or under his control. Those are the only outcomes that make sense from his position." "So you're walking into a trap." "I'm walking into a negotiation that might be a trap. There's a difference." Angelo shook his head. "Boss, this is insane. Let me go instead. Tell Giovanni you're sending your second to discuss terms." "And show weakness? That I'm afraid to meet him face to face?" Roman's jaw tightened. "No. I built this organization on the principle that I don't ask my people to do anything I wouldn't do myself. I'm not changing that now." Liana had been silent through the whole discussion, sitting on the couch and trying not to scream. Finally, she spoke up. "What if I came with you?" Everyone turned to stare at her. "Absolutely not," Roman said. "Hear me out. Giovanni wants you dead, fine. But he also wants to look reasonable, like he tried to make peace before more violence. If I'm there, a civilian, someone clearly not part of your organization, it makes it harder for him to just shoot you. He'd have to deal with a witness. Or he'd shoot you too. Maybe, but it adds a complication he wasn't planning for. Isn't that worth something? Sophia was nodding slowly. She has a point. Giovanni's smart. He knows killing a civilian, especially a woman, brings heat he doesn't need. Police, media, federal attention. It's messier than just taking out a rival boss. I don't care if it's tactically sound, Roman said. I'm not putting Liana in a room with a man who wants me dead. You're already putting yourself in that room. At least let me help tilt the odds. They argued for another 20 minutes, but Liana could see Roman's resolve weakening. Finally, he ran a hand through his hair and nodded. Fine, but you stay behind me at all times. You don't speak unless I tell you to. And if shooting starts, you hit the ground and stay down. Understood? Understood. At 8:30, they left for the Marino restaurant. The drive took 15 minutes through increasingly empty streets. The restaurant sat in an old neighborhood that had seen better days. Boarded up storefronts, broken streetlights, the kind of area where people minded their own business. The restaurant itself was a relic from the 50s, all cracked neon and faded grandeur. Angelo and Marco flanked Roman as they approached the entrance, weapons visible. Liana stayed close behind, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her chest. Inside, the restaurant was frozen in time. Dust-covered tables, a bar with bottles still lined up, even place settings like the last customers had just stepped out. And in the center of it all, Giovanni Salvatore sat at a table with two men standing behind him. Giovanni was older than Liana expected, probably 60, with silver hair and a face that might have been handsome before violence and rage carved lines into it. He stood when they entered, spreading his hands to show he was unarmed.
Roman, thank you for coming. Giovanni. Roman's voice was neutral, giving nothing away. You said you wanted to talk, so talk. Straight to business, I appreciate that. Giovanni's eyes slid to Liana. And you brought a date, how romantic. She's under my protection, that's all you need to know. Of course. Giovanni sat back down, gesturing to the chairs across from him. Please, let's be civilized about this. Roman sat, and Liana took the chair beside him. Angelo and Marco positioned themselves behind them, mirroring Giovanni's men. The setup was absurdly formal for what was essentially a meeting between killers. You killed my nephew, Giovanni said, without preamble. Marco was young, stupid, made mistakes. But he was family. You understand family, Roman. You built one of your own. Marco was trafficking children, using my territory to do it. I warned him. He didn't listen. So you executed him in the street like a dog. I gave him more mercy than he gave those kids. Giovanni's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Perhaps. Perhaps he did cross a line, but his death started a war that's cost both of us dearly. My organization is crippled. Yours is bleeding resources fighting me. And for what? Pride? Revenge? At what point do we admit this is unsustainable? Is that what this is? You admitting defeat? I'm admitting that continuing this war serves neither of us. You've proven your point. You're not to be trifled with. Your territory is your own. I acknowledge that. But I need you to acknowledge something too. Which is? That the Salvatore family isn't going anywhere. We've been in this city since before you were born, and we'll be here long after you're gone. You can't destroy us completely. You can only hurt us until we hurt you back. Roman leaned back, studying the older man. What are you proposing? A truce. Real peace, not just a pause in fighting. You keep your territory, I keep mine. We stay out of each other's business. No more raids, no more attacks, no more dead bodies sending messages. Giovanni's expression was earnest. I'm old, Roman. Tired. I've spent 40 years in this life and I'm ready to let the next generation handle things. But I can't hand over a family at war. I need peace to retire with dignity. And if I say no, then we keep killing each other until one of us is dead or destroyed. And honestly, I don't think either of us survives that. You're good. I'll give you that. But you're one man. Eventually someone will get lucky and you'll end up like your father. The mention of Roman's father made something dangerous flash in his eyes. Liana put a hand on his arm, a silent reminder to stay calm.
What guarantees are you offering? Roman asked. My word, backed by the understanding that if I break it, you'll wipe out what's left of my family without mercy. Giovanni spread his hands. I'm not asking you to trust me out of the goodness of your heart. I'm asking you to trust that I'm rational enough to want to live out my remaining years in peace. Your word isn't worth much after your men tried to kidnap Liana. That was Sal Moretti acting without my approval. When I found out, I had him dealt with. His body is currently feeding fish in the harbor. Giovanni's eyes were cold. I don't target civilians. Never have. That's not how I operate. Roman was silent for a long moment. Liana could practically see him weighing the options, calculating risks and benefits. Finally, he spoke. If we do this, and that's a big if, I need concessions. Real ones, not just promises. Name them. First, any of your people still involved in trafficking, children, women, anyone, they're done. You shut that down completely or this conversation ends. Giovanni nodded. Agreed. I never approved of that business anyway. It's messy and brings unwanted attention. Second, you pay reparations, $3 million to be distributed among the families of the people killed in this war. Both sides. That's steep. That's non-negotiable. You started this by raising Marco to be careless with other people's lives. You pay for the consequences. Giovanni grimaced but nodded. Fine, $3 million. Anything else? Yes. You retire. Actually retire, not just claim you are while still pulling strings. Hand over your organization to whoever you trust, and you disappear from the city. Go to Florida. Go to Italy. I don't care. But you don't get to stay here and potentially become a problem again. You're asking me to abandon my home. I'm asking you to choose between your home and your life. Pick one. The tension in the room was suffocating. Giovanni's men shifted nervously. Angelo's hand moved closer to his gun. One wrong word and this room would erupt in violence. Finally, Giovanni stood. He pulled out a silver lighter and a cigarette, lit it with steady hands. My wife died in this city, he said quietly. My children were born here. I've spilled blood on these streets for 40 years protecting what's mine. And you're asking me to walk away from all of it? Yes. What would you do? In my position? I'd take the deal. Because pride is a luxury you can't afford anymore. Giovanni took a long drag on his cigarette. You're right. As much as I hate to admit it, you're absolutely right. He stubbed out the cigarette and extended his hand. We have a deal. Peace between our families, reparations paid, and I'll be in Rome by the end of the month. Roman stood slowly, studying Giovanni's face for any sign of deception. Then he took the offered hand and shook it once, firmly. If you break this agreement, Roman said quietly, I will find you. In Rome, in hell, wherever you go, and I will end you and everyone you love. Are we clear? Crystal clear. They stood there for another moment. Two men who'd been trying to kill each other now bound by a handshake and mutual exhaustion. Then Giovanni nodded to his men and walked toward the exit. At the door, he paused. Roman, for what it's worth, you remind me of myself 30 years ago. Ambitious, ruthless, unafraid. But let me give you some advice. Figure out what you're building this empire for before you wake up one day and realize you're old and alone with nothing but blood on your hands. Then he was gone, and Liana could finally breathe. Did that actually just happen? Angelo asked. Did we just make peace? We'll see. Roman's voice was cautious. Could still be a setup. We keep security tight until Giovanni's actually on a plane to Rome. They left the restaurant and piled into the SUV. The drive back to the penthouse was silent, everyone processing what had just occurred. The war that had consumed weeks of their lives and dozens of others had potentially ended with a conversation and a handshake. It felt anticlimactic, and somehow exactly right. Back at the penthouse, Roman collapsed onto the couch. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving him looking gray with exhaustion and pain from his ribs. You did it, Liana said, sitting beside him. You actually ended it. Maybe. Probably. We'll know for sure when Giovanni doesn't try to kill me in the next few days. You don't trust him. I don't trust anyone, but I believe he's tired enough to mean what he said. Roman closed his eyes. $3 million. Do you know how long it'll take to move that much money without raising red flags? Sophia will figure it out. She always does. Yeah, she will. He reached for Liana's hand. Thank you for being there tonight.
You were right. Having you there made Giovanni think twice about trying anything stupid. So I'm useful for something besides worrying about you.
You're useful for a lot of things.
He pulled her close, wincing, including reminding me why I'm doing all this.
And why is that? Because I want a future, a real one, not just survival, and somehow you made me believe that's possible. The next 2 weeks were tense. Roman kept security tight, waiting for Giovanni to break his word or for some other threat to emerge. But slowly, piece by piece, peace held. The Salvatore family's remaining operations went quiet. Giovanni was spotted at the airport with luggage, and the $3 million was distributed to families who'd lost people in the war, both sides, no questions asked. Word spread through the city's underworld. Roman De Luca had gone to war with the Salvatores and not only survived but forced them into retreat. His reputation, already formidable, became something else entirely. People who'd considered challenging him reconsidered. Alliances that had been shaky solidified. And through it all, Liana stayed at his side, navigating the strange new world she'd been pulled into. 1 month after the meeting at Marino's, Roman found her in his home office, going through paperwork for the gallery. He'd bought the building where she worked and offered her a partnership with Gerald, ensuring she could continue her career without worrying about money. Busy? He asked. Always. Gerald wants to expand, maybe open a second location. I'm trying to figure out if that's ambition or delusion. Probably both. Roman sat on the edge of the desk. I have something for you. He pulled out a small box. Liana's heart stopped when she saw it. Black velvet, clearly jewelry. Roman, it's not what you think. Well, it is, but not yet. He opened the box. Inside was a ring, but not an engagement ring. A simple band with a single stone, elegant and understated. It's a promise that when this life calms down, and it will eventually, I'm going to ask you properly, with planning and romance and all the things you deserve. You're promising to propose? I'm promising that I want a future with you. Marriage, kids if you want them, the whole impossible dream. His voice roughened. I know I don't deserve it. I know I'm damaged and dangerous and probably going to mess this up, but I love you enough to try anyway. Liana took the ring, her hands shaking. You're an idiot if you think I need planning and romance. I fell in love with you in a garden while you were ordering someone beaten. I'm not exactly a traditional girl. So is that a yes? To eventually? That's a yes to right now, to tomorrow, to whatever comes after. She slipped the ring on her finger. But Roman, I need you to promise me something too. Anything. That you'll start letting go. Not of the organization, not of protecting people, but of the guilt, the weight of every death you carry. You've spent 15 years punishing yourself for surviving when your father didn't. At some point, you have to forgive yourself and actually live. He was quiet for a long time. Then he pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. I don't know if I can, he whispered. Then I'll help you. That's what love is, carrying each other's burdens until they're light enough to bear alone. They stayed like that until Sophia burst in without knocking. Sorry to interrupt your moment, but we have a situation. Roman tensed immediately. What kind of situation? The good kind. The city council is voting on that rezoning project you wanted. The one that would let us turn the old industrial district into legitimate businesses. And it looks like we have the votes. Roman's expression shifted from alarm to cautious hope. You're sure? 3 council members confirmed this morning. It's happening, Roman. We're actually going legitimate. After Sophia left, Roman turned to Liana. I've been working on this for 2 years, moving our operations away from the illegal stuff, building real businesses that can sustain the family without the risk. If this rezoning passes, it's the last major piece. You're trying to go clean. I'm trying to build something that won't get everyone I love killed. There will always be security work, protection services, things that exist in gray areas. But no more drugs, no more guns, no more illegal gambling, just businesses that happen to be run by people with complicated pasts. Is that even possible? Can you really leave this life behind? I don't know, but I'm going to try. For you, for the family, for whatever future we're building together. The rezoning passed 3 weeks later. Roman threw a celebration at his house, the same one where Liana had first met his family. Everyone was there, laughing and drinking and celebrating the possibility of a different future. Liana stood in the kitchen, helping Sophia with dishes, while Angelo's kids ran through the house playing some complicated game only they understood. "He's different with you," Sophia said, scrubbing a pan. "Lighter, like he remembers how to hope."
"He's different with all of you. You gave him a family when he'd lost everything. Maybe, but you gave him a reason to want more than just survival."
Sophia dried her hands and turned to face Liana. "I was wrong about you. At first I thought you were just some civilian who'd get him killed by distracting him. But you made him stronger, gave him something to protect that's more important than his pride or his empire. I didn't do anything special, I just loved him. That's everything, though. In this life, love is the rarest thing. Power you can take, money you can earn, respect you can demand. But love? That's a gift. And you gave it to someone who'd forgotten he deserved it." Later that night, after everyone had gone home and the house was quiet, Roman and Liana stood on his balcony looking out at the city lights. "I've been thinking," he said, "about what Giovanni said, about figuring out what I'm building this empire for. And I think I finally know. I'm building it for moments like this, where the people I love are safe and happy and free. Where kids can grow up without fear. Where someone like Sophia gets to run a legitimate business instead of constantly looking over her shoulder." He turned to her. "I'm building it for us. For the life we could have if I'm smart enough and lucky enough to pull this off. What kind of life do you want when all this is settled?" He was quiet for a moment, considering. "Something normal. Wake up next to you, drink coffee, maybe argue about whose turn it is to do dishes, take Angelo's kids to baseball games, have dinner parties that don't require armed guards. Just life. Boring, beautiful, ordinary life." That doesn't sound boring at all. No, I guess it doesn't. 6 months later, on a Saturday morning that felt like any other, Roman woke Liana at dawn and drove her to a property she'd never seen before. It was a house in the suburbs, not huge, not flashy, just a normal home with a yard and neighbors who waved hello. "What is this?" she asked as he unlocked the door. "Our future. If you want it." He led her inside to rooms that were empty but full of possibility. "I bought it last month. Figured if we're going to try this normal life thing, we should have somewhere normal to live. The penthouse is great for security, but it's not a home. Not really. You want to live in the suburbs? I want to live somewhere you can plant a garden, and I can learn to use a grill, and we can pretend for a few hours a day that we're just regular people." Liana walked through the empty rooms, imagining furniture and curtains and all the small details that turned a house into a home. What about security? Cameras hidden in the trees, a safe room in the basement, and Angelo living 2 streets over. We'll be safe, but it won't feel like a fortress. And your business? Mostly legitimate now. Sophia's running the books, making sure everything's clean. I still have to make appearances, maintain relationships, handle problems. But the day-to-day violence? That's getting rarer. So you're really doing it, going straight. Trying to. There will always be complications, always be threats from the past catching up. But yes, I'm trying. He took her hand. The question is, are you willing to try with me? Build this life, whatever it looks like. She thought about the past 8 months. The terror and the violence, yes, but also the love. The way Roman looked at her like she was his reason for breathing. The family they'd built from broken pieces. The future they were fighting for. Yes, she said, I'm willing to try. 1 year after that first kiss at Victoria's wedding, Liana stood in the garden of their suburban house wearing a simple white dress. No elaborate ceremony, no hundreds of guests, just Roman and her and the family they'd chosen. Sophia, Angelo, and his kids, Marco, Gianna, a handful of others who'd become essential. The ceremony was short, officiated by a judge that Sophia knew who didn't ask awkward questions about the groom's background. Roman's hands shook when he put the ring on her finger, and his voice cracked when he said his vows. I promise to love you in the darkness and the light, to protect you without smothering you, to build with you instead of for you, and to remember every single day how lucky I am that you chose me when you should have run. Liana's vows were simpler. I promise to stay, through fear and joy, peace and war, ordinary days and extraordinary ones. I choose you, Roman, every day. I choose you. When they kissed, Angelo's kids cheered and Sophia wiped her eyes, pretending she had allergies. Marco took photos with a camera he clearly had no idea how to use. And for one perfect moment, everything was exactly as it should be. The reception was in the backyard, catered food, a playlist Gianna had made, string lights that Roman had hung himself and cursed at extensively when they wouldn't work. It was messy and imperfect, and absolutely perfect. As the sun set and the party wound down, Roman pulled Liana away from the crowd to a quiet corner of the garden. "Happy?" he asked. "Deliriously. You?" "More than I thought possible, more than I deserve." "Stop that. You deserve happiness as much as anyone."
"Do I? After everything I've done?" She took his face in her hands. "You're not defined by your worst moments. You're defined by what you choose to do next, and you chose to build instead of destroy, to protect instead of conquer. That's who you are now. Because of you. Because of you deciding to change. I just reminded you it was possible."
They stood in the garden they'd planted together, surrounded by laughter and love and the life they'd fought so hard to build. And Roman realized that Giovanni had been right. You had to figure out what you were building your empire for before it was too late. He'd figured it out. It was this. It was her. It was the possibility that even someone stained with blood and violence could find redemption in the arms of someone brave enough to love them anyway.
"I love you," he said.
"In case I don't say it enough." "You say it plenty, but I'll never get tired of hearing it." "Good, because I plan on saying it for the next 50 years at least." "Only 50? I was hoping for 60. Let's start with 50 and see how annoying you find me by then." She laughed, and the sound was the best thing he'd ever heard. Better than respect, better than power, better than anything he'd accumulated in 15 years of fighting and surviving. That night, after everyone had gone home and the house was quiet, they lay in bed in their new home and talked about the future. About maybe expanding the gallery, about whether they wanted children, about all the small decisions that made up a life. "Do you ever regret it?" Roman asked. "Getting involved with me? Giving up your normal life?" "Never. My normal life was lonely and small and safe. This life, our life, is terrifying and complicated and absolutely worth it."
"Even knowing what I am, what I've done?"
"Especially knowing, because I know the whole truth and I love you anyway. That's real, Roman. Not pretty or easy, but real." He pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling her heartbeat against his chest. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, the weight of his past felt bearable. Not gone, never gone, but shared with someone strong enough to help carry it. The years that followed weren't perfect. There were setbacks, former enemies resurfacing, legal complications from past activities, the constant tension of living between two worlds. But slowly, steadily, Roman built something legitimate, something sustainable. The gallery expanded to 3 locations. Angelo's security company became one of the most respected in the city. Sophia's consulting firm advised businesses across the country. Marcus, Angelo's son, got into a prestigious college on a full scholarship. And Roman and Liana lived in their suburban house and argued about dishes and planted tomatoes that never quite grew right. They hosted barbecues where off-duty cops mingled with reformed criminals, where no one asked too many questions about anyone's past because everyone was focused on their future. On their 5th anniversary, Liana found Roman in the garden at dawn, staring at nothing. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked, just thinking about how different things could have been. If I'd made different choices. If you'd run that night in the garden instead of staying. But I didn't run, and you did make different choices. That's what matters. I spent so long thinking I was beyond saving, that the violence was all I'd ever be. But you saw something else in me, something worth fighting for. Because it was there all along. You just needed someone to believe in it." He stood and wrapped his arms around her. "I don't know what I did to deserve you. You chose to be better. That's all anyone can do." As the sun rose over their garden, painting everything gold, Roman thought about the journey that had brought him here. From a boy watching his father die, to a killer building an empire on fear, to a man learning to live with love instead of violence guiding his choices. It hadn't been redemption, exactly. He'd never be free of his past, never fully wash the blood from his hands. But he'd learned to carry it differently, to let it inform his choices without defining them. That was enough. It had to be enough. And with Liana beside him, it felt like more than enough. It felt like grace. Years later, when people asked how they met, Liana would smile and say it was at a wedding. She'd leave out the part about witnesses and violence and wars fought in city streets. She'd skip over the fear and the bullets and the nights spent wondering if he'd come home. Instead, she'd tell them about a man who built a family from broken pieces, who learned to love after years of only knowing how to survive, who proved that people could change if they wanted it badly enough and had someone willing to believe in them. And Roman, listening to her sanitized version of their story, would catch her eye and smile. Because they both knew the truth, that love didn't erase darkness, it just made it bearable. That you couldn't outrun your past, but you could choose a different future. They'd chosen each other, against all logic, all odds, all common sense. And somehow, impossibly, it had worked. Not because it was easy, not because they were perfect, but because they'd decided that broken people could build something beautiful if they were willing to try. And they were. Every single day, they were willing to try. That was the real story. Not the violence or the danger or the dramatic moments that could fill a movie screen. The real story was two people deciding that love was worth the risk, worth the fear, worth building a life on despite everything working against them. And in the end, that was the only story that mattered.